So nowadays, we can get much more at our gas stations than gas. What's the deal with gas station medication?
Heck, Pam, I can't even afford gas. I don't know how I'd buy medications too at the same time, but we'll find out today on Medical History Mysteries.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Medical History Mysteries. I'm Pam Maragliano. With me, as always, Tom Viola. Gas station prices are outrageous, but it turns out we can buy even more things at our gas station besides gas, snacks, and beverages. What's up with gas station medication?
What can I say? It's one of these hot topics that people like to talk about now. Things sort of flare up, in the media. And I've always known about this. I've been talking about this for years, but it's just started to become a trend now in both social media and traditional media with, the gas station pharmacy or gas station drugs. And basically what they are unregulated psychoactive substances. You can find them at convenience stores. I'm not just picking on gas station owners here. It's convenience stores, smoke shops, and of course gas stations because they're just likely to be found amongst, like you said, the snacks and the beverages. So what are they? So I can give you a couple. Okay, the first one that actually was known here in New Jersey, where I live in exile because I can no longer afford to live in New York, is Tianeptine, which was known as gas station heroin. Not kidding, that was its name. Okay. It is a tricyclic antidepressant, so it was sold as a mood stabilizer, but at very high doses, it actually stimulates opioid receptors. So if you knew enough to buy enough, you could take enough tianeptine to get high. Okay, it has different names: Neptune's Fix and Pegasus and Zaza, but I don't want to pick on those manufacturers. That's just their brand name. But these tianeptine is highly addictive, and even overdose can lead to things like seizures and respiratory depression. So that's one. You don't see it much anymore. Some states have cracked down on it, but heck, I was just traveling in the Midwest, and just for kicks, I walked into a gas station, and there it was. Multiple different names for it, but it's right there in front of me, right? Uh, the next one is kratom. Kratom has been around for a while, and kratom, people say it different ways, but basically, kratom is a tropical rainforest tree. It grows in Southeast Asia, but you can grow it at home, and it's prolific in its ability to produce leaves. So, leaves just pop up literally overnight. And so you peel the leaves off, you grind it up, you smoke it, you put it in tea, whatever. It tastes awful from what I've been told, but mitragynine is the active ingredient, which is both an opioid and a stimulant at the same time. So this is attractive for folks who want to use opioids, but don't want to look like they're using opioids because they're not drowsy, their eyes aren't half masked, they're wide awake. Subsequent to that, when we found out that mitragynine was broken down in our livers to 7-hydroxymitragynine, well, it didn't take long for manufacturers who were under the radar to make 7-hydroxymitragynine tablets, or now what they're known as 7-hydro or hydro tablets. And again, I was in that same gas station. I walked around and I saw all the 7-hydro stuff, super concentrated too, which even the FDA has actually taken action and said, there's a high risk of abuse. And in some states, it's illegal, but not all states. So if you've been addicted to opioids in your past and you want to grow your own, you literally can grow your own. And then there's synthetic cannabinoids, Delta 8, Delta 10, which you and I have talked about on this podcast before. So there, and of course the usual sexual enhancement pills, which typically have very high concentrations of things like sildenafil or tadalafil that are prescription drugs, but since they're not labeled as such, you end up taking super high doses of these drugs that are used, PDE5 inhibitors that are used for erectile dysfunction, and don't even know you're taking it, and that can lead to serious consequences like significant hypotension. So imagine if your patient's taking this cocktail of drugs they bought at a gas station. Will they mention it to you on or taking their medical history? That's why it's so important about using the right language and the right questions to get that information.
My brain is spinning right now. For starters, I feel like you're driving up to go, I don't know. I feel like picking up pills and driving away seems like a bad choice, and hopefully they're not driving while they've taken this. I also can't even imagine. I mean, you think about the number of people on this planet that have a prescription, and are on a prescription medication. I can just imagine the drug-drug interactions that could
Yeah.
take place.
Yeah.
And wow, so okay, and they're always changing and they're not regulated. So this is something that does it show up in blood tests? Like, if somebody is in treatment for opioids and now they're taking something like this, is this something that's detectable?
It does show up in toxicology. And my biggest concern is again is the interaction with drugs we use in dentistry. So if you're coming in for a procedure that requires sedation, I'm going to give you, the usual standard suite of sedatives that we use, propofol and sometimes halcyon, that sort of thing. Those drugs cause obviously you to become sedated. They can cause respiratory depression, but you, forgive the expression, pre-medicated, right? You know, if you need sedation for this procedure, it's probably going to be pretty involved, and you want to prepare yourself. So you may pre-medicate with something like kratom, or even something like tianeptine to take the edge off, or even a synthetic cannabinoid like Delta 8 or Delta 10 if you can't get regular cannabis in your state because it's not legalized. Well, did you tell me you pre-medicated? Because now if I give you two cartridges of, bupivacaine, that's really going to increase your risk of cardiac events because I didn't know that. So what we need to do first is make sure our audience is aware that these drugs exist and that they don't necessarily require a prescription. We have to make sure that, we're not taking shots at the manufacturers because unless someone tells them it's illegal, they're going to keep making this stuff. That's how the free market works. But what's very important is to ask the question and to document the answer. I can't tell you how many times I've had continuing education courses where I'll ask the audience, the patient says, you ask the patient, do you use substances? They say no. What do you do at that point? Most people in the audience say, well, nothing. They said no. But that's not enough. See, in the documentation, it's got to say patient denies the use of substances. That one phrase answers two questions. One, did you ask the question? And two, what was their answer? So it's a little blurb on a chart that may not mean much to you at the time, but it will save you later in case a medical emergency is determined as a result of a patient pre-medicating with substances and you didn't think to ask the question.
I think being incredibly risk averse in dentistry is probably the most pragmatic thing we can do. And so I'll tell you, next time I get gas, I'm walking in there to check out and see what's available in my local community. And I think we should also know what's out there and what our patients can get their hands on. So ask the question, certainly look it up. And, sometimes people need to be rescheduled or we need to get more information before we can treat them. And this could definitely save a life. Could be not great for the schedule, not great for practice management, but certainly great for taking care of people and our licenses. So thanks for bringing that up. I don't even realize what's out there in our gas stations.
Well, I'll tell you, Pam, I live in the middle of a little hamlet in New Jersey where honestly my neighbors are cows and corn. I mean, honestly, there's nothing going on down here. And I'll go for a couple of mile walk in the morning. And just the other day, I'm walking and I saw something in the street that didn't look like it belonged, and I picked it up, and it was an open package of 7 hydro tablets. So if it can happen here in the middle of nowhere in New Jersey, that's why I want to make sure everybody in the audience knows, don't think, well, it wouldn't happen in my neighborhood because believe me, it does.
Wow. Well, it's available. So
Yep.
if it's available and people might not realize the side effects with something that, I'm sure the packaging is pretty or bright or attractive in some way that somebody probably thinks if I can get it here, it can't possibly be harmful. And it certainly could be. So, wow, thanks for bringing that up because now I have something to do this weekend.
More to do at the gas station than to figure out how to get pay for a gallon of gas, right? I got you. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us for Medical History Mysteries, and we will see you all next week.
Take care, everybody.